to this topic of data, though. So like rewinding a little bit now, like we talked about service providers, we talked about platforms. Where does this leave us from a data perspective? We're seeing that with publicly accessible data sets and the concept of even like data cards. And that gets into the concept of data provenance and this concept of what data set are you working with? Do you know where it's coming from? Who compiled it? The origins of the data that's a part of it. And that's where the Google and Microsoft both have two good examples of templates for model cards that can be used. And the way you can think about model cards is it's kind of like if you go on GitHub right now and you look at like a repo for some type of project that's there, you have like your about like the README file, and it breaks down kind of about the project, what it's all about, if it's a well-done project, and it has that all filled out, of course. And you'll see all of that, and it might even include like limitations, or you can go into the contributions or the open issues and kind of understand what the limitations are. It's the same kind of concept in the data space. So if you have a data set, it will identify what are the biases. Are there any gaps in the data collected? Are there any risks associated with the data? Because it might be PHI. Hopefully it's not out there publicly accessible as PHI. But things like that, you can kind of identify in a model card around the actual data set or the actual model. It's meant to accompany a model that's developed and identifying attributes, almost like metadata, of the model itself and the underlying data that was built or that was used to build the model.
All right, so pause. Let's take like 2 steps back. You said data provenance, and then you started saying a whole lot of stuff right after that.
Provenance. So
yeah.
we'll have to make sure that's in there. But yeah, it's Provenance, and I'm reading it directly from our notes that Franklin gave us. So that's new for me as well.
Okay, and I caught the part where it's like, is it a dubious authority? Like, do we know and trust the data? And with the world we're going to, if you wanted to be a little sneaky, you could probably make up your own data or manipulate some data. I'm actually dealing with this professionally in a way too, so it's exciting in that like folks, they're used to getting away with some of this stuff, but with the data they can't really anymore. But I digress. So you've got a set of data and you don't know if it's good or not. So qualifying it as data that's usable that's the provenance, or
I wouldn't say that's the goal of data provenance, because I think that question can only be answered by the end user of the data set.
Okay.
And so I think if I'm out there on Hugging Face looking for a data set, I, as the all-knower of the project I'm working on, can understand whether or not this data set is going to have limitations that simply will not work for the type of model we're trying to build, or the type of model we're trying to fine tune, or the type of work we're trying to do in this sector, or for this project. So is that helpful? That's kind of how I view it.
So it's almost, to me, I'm hearing it as it's an origin story. It's giving you some specs on where it's from, giving you the idea of it's from this neighborhood versus that neighborhood kind of thing, but it's data.
So it's essentially like a less formalized blockchain type idea.
That could, and arguably you could use blockchain technology